Good morning, Eli.
Good morning, gentlemen. You're both way too kind, but thank you. And yeah, heck, Wimp, we worked together this year doing a few men's basketball games.
Yeah, we
so
sure did.
It just keeps on going.
It sure does. Well, I guess the first question I want to ask you, Eli, is that do you think the compensation committee would turn down a raise for Coach Saban today?
That's not my area of expertise, but I would tend to doubt it. I don't think there's any question. The man deserves every single penny he makes and then some.
How is how does the radio show go? The coach's show go, or the mingling with Coach Saban and yourself? How does that go?
It's really good. It's grown over the decades, certainly. 11 years now, whatever, coming up. He is. We get along very well. We obviously respect each other. Do we sit around and shoot the breeze and tell jokes and talk about what's going on with the family and where we ate dinner this weekend? No. But at the same time, there are coaches with whom I used to do that in football who never won anything.
Right.
So, I think I realize I didn't when he first got here because it was such a departure. His style was such a departure from Mike Shula, from, Coach Dubose, from Gene Stallings. But, I realized that if talking to old Eli would help Alabama win football games, I'd have the biggest cauliflower ear in the world. But the ultimate bottom line is he has more important things to do than sitting around and shooting the breeze and telling jokes with old Eli. So we get along wonderfully. We laugh, we'll chuckle, what have you. But it's pretty much business conversations. But we do like each other and we do get along very well. It's just we don't sit around and yuck it up.
Yeah, that's good, Barry.
Eli, have you ever seen? You've seen a lot of coaches come and go, but have you ever seen a guy like Coach Saban that can just have all the success, but he turns the page and just goes back to work? A lot of guys will just maybe look back at all they accomplished and take a deep breath. Have you ever seen a guy that never quits like him?
I don't think I ever have, and even your dad obviously was quite motivated. But, there'd be some laughing in there and what have you and yucking it up. No, Coach Saban is a unique personality. Again, a very nice man, and look at all the wonderful things he does for the community, so much of which he doesn't even want folks to know about. He'll just do stuff not to get publicity, just to do stuff and help people. So he's a wonderful man. But as far as a centered a guy who's focused, I don't think I've ever encountered anybody like him in any of the sports that I've done. Not hoops, not hockey, not NASCAR, nothing. He is very much a unique personality. But at the same time, he truly loves what he does. And the old saying, if you love what you do, you've never worked a day in your life.
Yeah,
he gets, he recruits because he loves to. Other coaches recruit because they have to. And you take a look at signing day, and every year it's Alabama number one, and if not number one, no worse than number two. The man has never worked a day in his life because he loves what he does, and that, but he is, what I'm saying. So, he works intently, but he loves it. So no, he's a remarkable human being, let alone just a great football coach.
Eli, tell our listeners, if you can, I'm sure you can, one or two games that stand in your mind as great games that you called, that you felt good about.
That's a great question. I get that all the time at speaking engagements.
Yeah.
And and this is the God's honest truth. Probably not counting national championship games; those are on a plane of their own. Let's put them aside.
Okay.
In football, obviously, there was that game in 1989 where Bama was playing Ole Miss in Jackson, Mississippi. And Bama was down 21-0 within the first few minutes of the ball game. I mean, it was unbelievable. Folks were still getting settled in their seats, and the Tide was down 21-0. Then they scored the next 62 points in a row. So everything was good again. Then there was the game in which Terrence Cody blocked those field goals against Tennessee. But when I'm doing after-dinner speeches, Coach, and this is true, and you probably know where I'm going, I tell the people you'll never, ever, ever in your life guess the two most memorable, and it doesn't make it the best, the two most memorable games I've ever worked, one of which was the game that your team played against Loyola Marymount in the 1990 West Regionals, right after Hank Gathers had passed away, and that after sweeping the two games in Long Beach in the first round of the tournament, the team went on to Oakland and played LMU and had that magnificent ball game despite the outcome. I mean, the eyes of the entire nation's sports fans were on that game because of all that had transpired with Hank Gathers. Yeah. And the other one, obviously, was that memorable night in Wichita where, the game took forever and Bama played poorly and lost, and the basket was broken, and their coach ripped up his knee and all sorts of garbage. That is still, and I tell those two, I said, folks, you'll never guess. I do. I swear to you, ask anybody who's heard me talk, and I say, but the two most memorable were two basketball games. But, I've been blessed to have broadcast so many wonderful games. I don't know how you start qualifying and them, the shutout of Michigan State, this one, that one, the first win at Auburn after the series had moved down there, and on and on and on. There were the Sean Alexander running wild night down in Baton Rouge, or the late score against LSU by T.J. Yeldon. There are so many that I have been blessed to have called over the years.
Eli, how many times after Alabama lost a basketball game, Dad had to do a show with you after the game? Did he tell you he was going to quit?
Well, on occasion, but the biggest one was that game in Wichita. I mean, we were like, Bama was like, I forget Wimp, but the Tide was ranked like in the top 10 somewhere.
Yeah, we were.
And Wichita State was ranked like number 145 or something like that. And I don't know what the deal was, if you knew their coach or how it was that the Tide went to play at the Levitt Arena in the middle of the night in the dead of winter. But
who scheduled that?
Who scheduled that? But
that's right.
But the game ends, and it was like a 4-hour game because of all the stuff that had gone on. And the halftime took forever. They were unveiling a new mascot, and this was after their coach had ripped up his knee, celebrating at the Horn, ending the first half when his team was up big over Alabama. And then Marcus Webb, I think it was, tore down the backboard, and they didn't have a replacement except all the way across campus at the rec center. This night took forever. The game is over, and your dad comes out to courtside, sits down next to me, puts his arm on the table and his head on his arm, and I start this interview, and he's talking to the floor. And it's so late because of all the delays. All the newspaper men are standing around, and I'm have to move a microphone because he's talking to the floor. And then all of a sudden he reaches. He doesn't stand up. He leans back and he goes, "Hootie's not going to have to fire me in the morning. I quit. I quit." And these newspaper guys are writing so fast, man. There's smoke coming up off of their notepads. And he goes, Hootie won't have to fire me in the morning. I quit right here. And but that's because your dad had and has passion for the sport and for his teams. But he did that on occasion. It was just another notch, and you keep on going.
Yeah, that poor assistant that scheduled that game, I bet you he had a fun bus ride back to the airport.
Yeah, look over there. I see your assistant.
I forgot all. You brought back. Of course, I remember the game, but it's interesting for you to tell that. Are there any particular players that Alabama has had that we all favor some favor some over others that really stand out? That just guys that you love calling the game for.
Well, and that's I love all of them when they're when things are going well.
Sure.
I really don't necessarily have a true favorite. Some guys were always very kind when I go to practice. They'll always come over and say, Mr. Gold, great to see you. How are you? And I'll always say, Mr. Gold was my dad. I'm Eli, and then so you build up a little relationship there. I guess the kids I was most partial to, and this is, I guess, basically because of their professional, my professional role, is the ones who would give me a good, concise, clear-cut answer for a broadcast. I look at things a little differently. People always say, what's your favorite stadium? Well, or my favorite racetrack or whatever, and I tend to think about the broadcast facility more so than the concession stands or the bathroom or the locker rooms or whatever. I guess I think about what impacts our end of the business. So a lot of the, Sean Alexander was always wonderful.
Always good, wasn't he?
To deal with, and he and I just not too long ago, probably been about 4 months now ago, did a nice dinner together. Spoke at a function down in Dothan. He's a wonderful guy, and always was able to give you a really good answer to a question. O.J. Howard, on the most recent team, Jonathan Allen, who was very kind. We had a nice chat the other day on A-Day. So there are a lot. There are many of them. And then some guys just, in any sport, some guys just aren't terribly comfortable when a microphone is in front of their face. But I still loved calling their accomplishments. So, I really, I can honestly say I've not had a problem, with anybody. I've been blessed, and I try. It doesn't always happen, regretfully, but I try to fly under the radar, and just my job is to be the liaison between these kids and these coaches and the fans.
Sure.
And I take that responsibility, very seriously.
That's good stuff.
Eli,
Larry,
what's your thoughts on the NFL draft just passed? I see Marlon Humphrey, go as high as he did, and I went to school with his dad, Bobby, who we had on yesterday. That's a great family there. But just want to get your thoughts on the draft and how many guys, at least 10 guys, going to the NFL.
Well, of course, it's never a surprise when Alabama leads the draft or is number 2 in the draft in numbers of players. And of course, you look over the last decade or whatever it is, and Alabama's just blown everybody else away. Again, going back to what we talked of earlier and Coach Saban, I'll be quite honest. I was surprised at the order in which some of our guys were taken, being around for so long. But, then you read the story. There was a great story yesterday, I guess it was, detailing the behind-the-scenes thinking of the San Francisco 49ers. How they were going to take, Foster number 3. But then in front of them, things changed, and all of a sudden, Reuben drops, to 31 or something. So you just never know what's going to transpire if a team makes a surprise pick or what have you. So I was kind of surprised that some of these men were around, and taken when they were. But, the draft is done. These guys now have a home. It doesn't matter if you were taken in the 2nd round or in the 4th round. You get out there, you play to your best, and the Alabama guys are good enough, and they have been trained well enough and have learned in a system that lets them transition a little more easily than some into the National Football League. So I expect to be seeing those guys playing and playing well for many years.
Eli, we want to thank you for being on. I know you're busy, and Barry and I appreciate so much you taking 10 or 15 minutes to be on our show.
Never too busy for you guys. It's always great to be on with you.
I look forward to seeing you down the line somewhere. Thanks a lot.
You got it. Take care, fellas. Have a good day.